That's my opening.
That's the Halloween opening. Okay, good. Halloween month.
'Tis the season to be spooky. I'm Aaron.
I'm Tom.
And this is Baby's Scary Watch List, the podcast where we're doing all Halloween-themed episodes for a month. Ooh! I even wrote that in there.
5 of them. We have 5 movies this month.
It's true. I am a little bit of a scaredy cat, so today's movie is a mix of scary and humorous. I scream, you scream, we all scream for Scream, the 1996 Wes Craven film. Yep. So if you haven't seen Scream, you may think, like I did, that it's really, really scary because the ghost face costume that has become ubiquitous as the 13-year-old Halloween uniform. But it actually is not that scary. I mean, it's scary.
There's scary moments.
But it's not that scary. It subverts the teen slasher genre. And it's a very meta comedy horror film, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like, that's like the whole reason it was made.
It's one of my favorites, I would have to say. I ranked it 4.5 stars.
Me too. I had already had it 4.5 stars.
When did you first see Scream?
When we watched it the first time.
Me too.
Yeah,
I had not
which was
seen
a couple
it.
years ago.
Yeah, I had not seen it till I was almost out of my 20s, which is kind of crazy, especially since the ghost face costume is everywhere.
Yes.
To this day, I think that it's probably, I didn't look this up, but I feel like it's got to still be a bestseller.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine it not being. You're more in with the kids than I am.
That is true, but we don't really let kids wear masks at school.
That makes sense.
Which makes sense. So, written by Kevin Williamson, who also created Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
It's so
Perfect.
random.
Perfect.
Scream was originally called Scary Movie. Did you know that?
Yes, I did, and they didn't want it to be called Scary Movie because it's partially a comedy.
Yeah.
Which is funny given what Scary Movie actually is.
Yeah, and Scary Movie, I think, has the Scream mask in it.
Scary
right?
Movie? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the one where he's doing drugs and laughing. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was released in late 1996, like December 1996.
Yeah.
And
Oscar season 1996.
Oscar season, I mean, come on. And it ran for a solid 111 minutes, under the 2-hour mark. You know I love it. It was considered unique for the genre for a variety of reasons. Of course, we just mentioned it's funny, which is kind of cool, but also because they cast really popular actors at the time, specifically the actresses. So casting well-known people like Drew Barrymore and Courtney Cox, who was really, really famous at the time for Friends, one of the most probably well-known and easily recognizable actors at that moment.
Yeah.
That led to a very high percentage of female patrons. So that is what a lot of people credit towards giving Scream that major success that it had. It had a pretty small budget. They just had 14 to 15 million on Wikipedia. I don't know if that means they couldn't choose or it's somewhere in between.
A lot of times it's just an estimate, especially with smaller budget movies like this.
So with that small budget, Scream made $173 million. It led to a whole bunch of sequels. There have been 5 Scream movies that have come out. I think it's either, I shouldn't have started this sentence. I think it's in the $400 million or maybe 700.
Sure. It's either 400 or 700 million.
$100 million.
Not that big of a difference.
Made a lot of money. And the 6th one is due out next year, but there is a little bit of controversy. Did you see this?
I didn't. Does it have something to do with it not being with like original people?
Yeah. So Neve Campbell, who is the star of the original as well as the other 4. Yeah. She decided that she's not going to come back for the next installment because she's very disappointed with the salary offerings. She said that she has, she deserves
She's the star,
more.
baby.
And it's true, she is. She's been the star since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Give her what she's worth, baby. And so they're not doing that, and she's not returning, which I think is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
There is one person I saw that is an OG that's returning, but I don't want to really say it because I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
Because I spoiled myself for the latest Scream where a favorite meets their demise. But anyway, in addition to Campbell, Barrymore, and Cox, Scream stars David Arquette.
Wait, can you say that again? That sounds like a law firm.
Campbell, Barrymore, and Cox.
PC. We'll get you a verdict.
Scream stars David Arquette, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich. Is it Ulrich or Ulrich?
I think it's Ulrich, and that's also a really unfortunate name. What is his real first name?
It's not Skeet,
I don't know. I mean, Skeet sounds like a nickname. It's definitely a nickname for that Kanye West gave to Pete Davidson.
Oh, yeah. That is, oh, God. Matthew Lillard, a.k.a. Shaggy, and Jamie Kennedy. Ghostface was voiced by... Oh, gosh. I wrote River L. Jackson. I think it's Roger L. Jackson.
It is Roger.
Who was also known for voicing Mojo Jojo on the Powerpuff Girls. So that's something that you never see him, but the voice of Ghostface that you only hear on the phone. Sometimes you hear him like grunt and stuff in real life.
Yeah.
But like you never, like when he gets kicked in the balls, which always happens.
Constantly. He gets knocked down, I think, 13 times in this movie.
It's crazy. When you hear his voice on the phone, it's actually voiced by Roger L. Jackson, a.k.a. Mojo Jojo. It received mostly positive reviews, and it really revitalized the horror genre, which had fallen into the straight-to-DVD trap that affected other genres as well, like action movie sequels.
Oh, yeah.
That's the genre I think of when I think of straight-to-DVD.
The Schwarzeneggers, the Bruce Willises.
It also caused a good bit of controversy with a few instances of crimes with teen perpetrators being blamed on the movie and the popularity of the Ghostface costume.
Many of these types of movies have copycats after the fact. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know about like the horror movies, but like Dexter had copycats. Like there's always been copycats when it comes to like serial killer / mass murderer movies.
What's the line? Movies don't create psychos. They just make them more creative from Scream itself. Yeah. Now, I myself do not really subscribe to the satanic panic stuff.
No, I have a little bit on that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Charles Manson blaming murdering people on a Beatles song.
Yeah.
I don't really dig that. Metallica getting blamed for stuff, right? Iron Maiden. And then, Scream being... teens saying, well, I learned how to kill people from that movie. That is, I think, not true. And it's an easy thing to blame, sort of like, oh, video games made kids violent.
It's the same exact concept.
It's the same concept.
It's just, it's taking the blame out of the things that actually cause stuff like this.
Actual societal problems. Yeah.
Systemic issues.
Right. So, having recently celebrating 25 years since its release, Scream is now considered a classic in the horror genre. In fact, in 2008, which was a long time ago now that I think about it, Empire ranked it 482nd on its best 500 films of all time list. Wow. Top 500? It's probably in the top 500 that I've seen.
Absolutely in the top 500 that I've seen.
So it'd probably have to be in like the top half, which, it is. And in 2016, a little bit closer, Empire ranked it number 3 on its best horror movies of all time. I was a little surprised on the top 2, Tom. I mean, they're very recognizable. I would have thought The Exorcist.
Yeah.
That's not in the top 2. Do you want to guess on the top 2?
Give me a hint.
One of them is an adaptation of a novel. Number 1 is.
Of a novel?
Yeah. And then number 2.
Carrie?
No, but you're in the right
ballpark.
direction. Yeah.
It doesn't count. It's a miniseries, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't count, especially because the new movie came out after 2016 when the list was made. 1980. Ooh.
There's so many Stephen Kings out there. I can't. Is it The Shining?
It is.
Okay.
That was number 1. And then number 2, I can just tell you if you want, is Alien.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember if I've seen Alien.
As far as I know, we watched Aliens.
Pretty sure I saw Aliens.
But, yeah.
And then The Shining, I watched it in high school and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'll have to rewatch it. What I think about when I think of The Shining is 30 Seconds to Mars, made a music video for their song The Kill that's like based on The Shining.
Okay, yeah, we're not going to shout out Jared Leto.
No shout out to Jared Leto, but shout out to the joke in Popstar where the main character thinks that 30 Seconds to Mars is a fact and
Yes.
not a band.
How many times do I have to tell you it doesn't take 30 seconds to get to Mars?
So good. So that's really honestly all I have about Scream. There's so many like little facts and things about it. I was so surprised. It reached almost like Shrek-like
Heights?
yeah, when it came to trivia.
The amount of the how prolific the trivia is.
And I was not willing to jump into that.
I had to skip a lot of trivia.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough time.
We just don't have enough time in the world for it. But what I will say is I do enjoy this type of horror movie with humor and satire and a wink nudge at the genre itself. I do think that now it can get a little overdone and hokey because it's been done a lot.
Well, I think the movie that took it to the next level was The Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
And that was almost 20 years later.
2008.
2012, I thought.
2012?
Yeah.
A little good.
We watched it for our 2010s.
Okay, so yeah,
thing.
probably, yeah.
2011 or 2012. And that one really, really, really went further into the meta commentary and all that type of stuff.
Right. I think that you also, if you are really good at sifting through, a lot of the sequels to movies kind of get into that. Like, I have never seen a Chucky movie, but Child's Play seems to be pretty straight up horror, maybe a little funny.
Oh, well, the first one or two is horror, and then it just devolves into chaotic nonsense. Like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky are basically comedies.
And then think about the Evil Dead series.
Yeah.
The first one's like a pretty
The first one is a
straight up
legitimate horror movie. The second one, in the first 5 minutes, totally retcons the entire first movie and turns Bruce Campbell's character, Ash, into like a badass.
Yeah.
In the first one, he's like a nerdy wimp. But then in the second one, for whatever reason, they recap the whole first movie in the first 5 minutes of Evil Dead 2 and like totally change the framing of it so that Ash is like a cool guy now in the second
I
one.
love that.
And he has all his one-liners and his jokes, and it's a totally different movie from the first movie.
Even things like Leprechaun, you know, the first one, I don't know, Jennifer Aniston was in it, so I'm thinking there's got to be some legitness to it.
Yeah.
But I've only seen Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Yeah.
And that one was certainly not scary.
No.
It was funny. So I do think that this movie really kind of jump-started that sort of, it can be kind of gory, but it's really funny too.
Yeah.
And then you've got stuff like Drag Me to Hell that's very similar from a few years ago.
I haven't seen it.
It's the same thing. It's like, it's funny. Oh, It Follows from a couple years ago.
That was
great. That's very similar. And then things that are kind of tinged with horror, like A Jennifer's Body.
Yeah.
I like that stuff too. I just enjoy when there's an element of humor in scarier movies to kind of lighten the mood, where now it's watchable. Even like, am I crazy, or were the Purge movies had a kind of tinge of humor to them too?
I don't know if it was like comedy. Like, this movie has jokes. I don't know if the Purge had jokes, but there are like moments
Light
in it. Yeah.
moments.
I only saw the first one. I don't know about the later Purges.
And you know, some of my favorite, or at least a couple favorite of my like comedies that I love also have that horror element, including one we're going to be doing very soon, which I won't spoil quite yet. So I'm excited to talk about this one. Tom, let's get a little bit of a summary.
All right. So we open up in the upper middle class suburban town of Woodsboro, California, with high school student Casey Becker, played by Drew Barrymore, home alone getting ready to watch a scary movie.
I was just about to say something that I actually made as a discussion point for something that I didn't even think about. Like, I love the naming. The characters' names are so good in this.
They're very they're very California,
They're so
upper middle class California.
memorable, too. Sidney Prescott, Billy
Loomis is a great name.
Is Loomis a name from The Exorcist?
I think so. There were. I remember specifically reading that his last name was a reference to something.
Okay, yeah. And there's another one, too, that I really
Stu
like.
Macher.
That's really funny. Oh, Gale Weathers.
Yeah.
Cotton Weary.
Dewey Riley.
They're great.
These are great
Tatum
names.
Riley. They're great.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Did you say Nev Campbell's character's name?
Yeah, Sidney Prescott.
Sidney Prescott, that's it. So Casey gets a call from an unknown person, which she believes to be a wrong number, but they start to discuss horror films, including Halloween and A Nightmare on Elm Street and other movies like that. Then, after Casey hangs up, the caller calls again, and the conversation turns when he threatens her life and reveals that her boyfriend Steve is bound and gagged on her patio. The caller sadistically demands that they play a movie trivia game in order to allow Casey to save her life and Steve's life. Listen, I'm not a murderer, but if I was, I would definitely involve movie trivia.
Wait. Before you move on, I just want to... I wrote down the line where it turns in that opening scene.
He says, yes, do it.
He says...
I know exactly which one it is.
What's your name? I want to know who I'm looking at.
Yeah.
That is the most bone-chilling
And the
thing
music just...
you could ever hear on the phone, ever.
Yeah.
It's wild. I love this opening scene. I mentioned it in the Shrek episode.
Yeah.
This may be my favorite opening scene
one of the
all
best
time.
ever.
I don't like the bloody, gutsy, like, bleh, the insides and all that. I hate that.
Spoilers.
Spoiler. But I love the... Is it a bait and switch where it's like, oh, it's Drew Barrymore, she's on the poster, she's in the trailer,
Yeah.
she's gonna be the hero the whole time?
It's Psycho.
It's Psycho. It's Janet Leigh. Yeah. All right, sorry, go.
Where was I?
Sorry.
Casey gets the first question correct, and it's about Halloween and who the killer was in Halloween, Michael Myers.
Sorry,
But-
Mike Myers.
Yeah, not to be confused. But on the second question, when she answers that Jason Voorhees was the killer in the first Friday the 13th, she is incorrect.
This is very base level trivia, Casey.
Bummer. If she's like as big a scary movie fan as she's watching one at home alone, like making popcorn on the stove, which is really outdated. Come on.
Jiffy Pop. It also did take her a little too long to get Michael Myers. I know she's scared. I know she's scared.
Yeah, I mean, there's extenuating circumstances here, too.
I guess, but it's kind of like if it was Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're not getting Freddy Krueger right away, then there's a problem. If you're watching Candyman and you don't say Candyman, there's an issue.
You said it twice. We can't say it.
Oh,
we
God,
can't say it anymore.
no.
So because she got the answer wrong, Steve gets murdered and disemboweled in front of her. Casey screams and runs. A person wearing a black robe and a ghost mask chases her, eventually catching her and leaving her corpse dangled from a tree for her parents to discover. That's the first sequence.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes.
Whew.
It's harsh. And at that moment, you're just like, whoa, they did the Psycho thing.
Yeah.
They killed off the
big star of the movie.
Genius.
Drew Barrymore was like one of the biggest stars in Hollywood at this time.
Yeah.
Like she was massive.
Yeah. And she's great, too.
She's awesome. She's the best. I love Drew Barrymore. We head to the room of high schooler Sidney Prescott, played by Nev Campbell, where she's scared by the sudden arrival of her boyfriend Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, through her bedroom window.
Looking like Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Apparently that's exactly how he enters the movie.
It's the... Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's the hair.
Yeah.
And it's the sulking.
And it's like the way that he like tilts his head and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gives me almost a River Phoenix vibe as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely based on Johnny Depp.
Billy arrives wanting to hook up, and she rebuffs him because she doesn't want to and she's not ready.
Good for you, Sid.
So the shocking murders lead to a police investigation and a swarm of news media around town. Sydney, Billy, and their friend Stu, played by Matthew Lillard, Stu's girlfriend Tatum, played by Rose McGowan, and Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, discuss who the murderer could be, including throwing accusations at one another. Sydney is struggling with the first...
Oh, also I like that because then we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's smart.
But like, which one of these people is it?
Yeah.
Sydney is struggling with the first anniversary of the murder of her mother, and the murders of Casey and Steve lead to the arrival of Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, a tabloid journalist responsible for spreading conspiracy theories about Sydney's mom's death. Or are they conspiracy theories?
I don't know if I like the character.
Gail?
To be honest
I
with
didn't.
you. Usually
When you ask me my favorite character, it's not going to be Gail.
Now, if Jennifer Coolidge was I keep bringing up Jennifer Coolidge. Like, I don't know. I don't love Courtney Cox. Sorry, Court, but she's not my favorite.
I think she works for this type of movie, but she's definitely not my favorite.
No.
Sydney believed that a man named Cotton Weary, played briefly by Liev Schreiber, was responsible for her mom's death, and she testified against him at trial, leading to his conviction. But Gail did not believe that Cotton was responsible. When Sydney runs into Gail, Gail steps over the line, asking her if she wanted a copy of her book, and Sydney punches her in the face. Really rocks her.
Yeah, she does.
While Sydney waits at home for Tatum to pick her up after practice to spend the night with her, Sydney gets a taunting call from the killer and is chased throughout her house by him. As she takes refuge in her room, the killer disappears, but Billy arrives through the window again. When he drops a cell phone, Sydney suspects him of making the call and runs away, having Billy arrested.
Which is so 1996.
I wrote that too later on. While Billy is in jail, though, Sydney receives another call from the killer, causing her to question whether Billy is actually responsible.
Same, dude. I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. So Billy's released, and the cops turn their sights to Sydney's father, Neil, who claimed he was heading out of town for the weekend, but the calls were traced to his cell phone. Principal Arthur Himbry, played by Henry Winkler, that's another great name.
Yeah, they're all great.
Suspends school pending the investigation, and he is stabbed in his office by the killer.
Oh, also, Henry Winkler still looked the tiniest little bit like the Fonz.
I have two things for you there. When he closes the door, when he thinks he sees the killer the first time and he's in the mirror, he starts like messing with his hair like the Fonz.
Yeah.
And also when he goes in the closet, the Fonz's jacket is in his closet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, if you're watching Barry, I mean, I love Henry Winkler. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Give him all the awards.
Yeah.
The Fonz is no longer the Fonz, right? Henry Winkler's his own thing now.
But the great thing about Barry is like the Fonz would be the washed up guy at teaching acting classes.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Definitely. But here, he's still got that little swagger.
Yeah.
Well, he had it.
Yeah, before he was stabbed. To celebrate school being suspended, Stu has a party at his house. Gail attends uninvited, having a journalist's hunch that the killer would strike. And also, it's a horror movie, and they all keep talking about how this is like a horror movie. Tatum's somewhat inept older brother, Dewey, played by David Arquette, is a police officer, and he also attends, trying to be there in case anything happens. As the characters watch the movie Halloween on TV, horror movie mega fan Randy describes the rules to successfully survive a horror movie. 1. You may not survive the movie if you have sex. 2. You may not survive the movie if you drink or do drugs. To this one, all the kids cheer because they're all drinking. 3. You may not survive the movie if you say, "I'll be right back, hello," or "Who's there?" Stu responds by asking Randy if he wants a beer. When Randy says yes, Stu mockingly says he'll be right back, and everyone laughs. When Stu asks Tatum to go get him some beer from the garage, Tatum is confronted by the killer. After hitting the killer with some beer bottles and honestly holding her own against the larger
she does a good job.
assailant, Tatum tries to crawl through a doggy door in the garage. The killer raises the garage door, and Tatum is crushed and killed trying to escape. I love that. That's a great scene.
It's an amazing scene. I love Rose McGowan in this movie is amazing.
Yeah. The partygoers are told of the death of their principal, and many of them leave to go party at the school.
I know. That's
leaving. Well, that's part of like the whole desensitization
the whole
thing.
Yeah.
Leaving only our core group of Sydney, Billy, Randy, Stu, Dewey, Gail, and Gail's cameraman Kenny. Sydney and Billy reconcile and have sex. So that's the virgin thing.
Yep.
So Sydney's got to die, right?
There's also a really funny little gag there where they're watching, everybody else is watching Jamie Lee Curtis on TV, and they're like, "Oh, she's about to like show her boobs," and then it cuts to them.
Yeah,
It's a funny gag.
Yes. So soon after that, they are confronted by the killer as Billy is stabbed trying to protect Sydney.
Yeah. Then you're like,
"Oh, who is this?"
It wasn't Billy. Yeah, that's so smart.
Sydney runs out of the house and tries to leave in the news van, but the killer arrives and slashes Kenny's throat.
Poor Kenny.
Kenny just... He had a rough go of it. Yeah. Gail then tries to escape and crashes the van. Back inside the house, Dewey is stabbed in the back and collapses, but Sydney is able to take his gun. Randy and Stu come running back into the house and accuse one another of being the killer.
Oh my gosh.
But Sydney takes the gun back into the house where she sees Billy bloodied but alive. Randy enters the house. Sydney gives Billy the gun. Instead of looking for the killer, though, Billy's demeanor changes as he turns and shoots Randy. What?
No, not Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah, we were all hoping Jamie Kennedy survived this one.
Well, you know what? We need Malibu's Most Wanted.
It's true.
Be rad.
Billy reveals that he faked his attack and that he is the real killer, along with Stu, who enters the room talking into a voice changer that sounds like the ominous caller.
It didn't. Can I just say
It
that's
was
the
him.
one thing? No, it didn't sound like it.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Billy and Stu corner Sidney in the kitchen and pull the classic villain monologue, although I guess this is more of a duologue, where they discuss the plan to kill her and blame her father, who they have bound and gagged in Stu's house, for the murders.
But it becomes like more and more unhinged, which I like.
Yeah, I can't really
Like
convey
it's
that.
not just like an ominous, like, oh, I'm gonna do this and then this. They're like laughing and like yelling
and they're stabbing each
and
other.
they're stabbing each other. It's crazy.
They also reveal that they were responsible for the murder of Sidney's mother.
Yeah, that's wild.
And they framed... It was a really sad thing.
Poor
I know.
baby.
They framed Cotton for it because Sidney's mom was having an affair with Billy's father, which caused his mom to leave. Gail shows up, allowing Sidney to escape, taunting Billy and Stu with a phone call and putting on the killer's costume, knocking Billy out and killing Stu by dropping a television set on his head.
It was not very smart, can I just say, of Sydney to wear that costume, because what if the cops had come in or something?
Got DNA.
And then she's wearing it. Like,
Or that, yeah, if they literally saw her. Billy wakes up and attacks Sidney, but Gail shoots him. Randy shows up, alive, and notes that the killer always resurfaces for one last scare. As Billy does so, Sidney shoots him in the head, and that's it for our guy Billy.
She says, not in my movie.
Yep. When police arrive on the scene, a badly injured Dewey is taken away by an ambulance as Gail reports the night's events. And we hit the credits. And that's Scream.
That's Scream for you.
That's Scream, people.
I love Scream.
Amazing movie.
It's such a good movie. I just think that it is an awesome twist. Because
Having two killers is genius.
having two killers is so smart. And even if you think you're right, even if you're like partially right, like nobody would have guessed that.
No.
Right? Like,
I love
no
that
way.
in that first scene where they're all accusing each other, there's like, if you go back and rewatch it, because this was our second time watching it, Billy and Stu, like Stu goes into detail about like cutting somebody open, like, you know, Drew Barrymore's character and Steve were cut open. And Billy is looking at him like, shut up. Like,
yeah. And the first time you're watching it, you're thinking, oh, he's looking at him that way because he's saying like, shut up, don't talk that way in front of my girlfriend whose mom was just killed last year.
Right.
But now we know he's saying, shut up, because they both know that they're the ones that do those crimes.
yeah. And like,
So smart!
don't get too cocky about not getting caught. Like,
Yeah. I love stuff like that, which actually brings me to my first couple questions. Now, what other movies are it's different when you watch it the second time kind of movie, where you're like, oh, well, the first time I was just trying to get the gist.
Yeah.
And then the second you like see a bunch more, or maybe like the first time you think of it one way and then it like the ending completely changes it. My classic example is one of my favorite movies, Get Out.
Yep.
The first time you watch it, you're thinking one way, and that's a horror-y kind of comedy sort of thing too. And the second time you're watching, when you know who the bad people are and what goes on and all that kind of stuff, you're watching in a whole different light. There are some lines that have two completely separate meanings depending on if you know what they're talking about or not.
Yeah.
And I loved that movie. And I saw it twice in theaters. It's one of the only movies that I saw twice in theaters. And I actually enjoyed it just as much the second time.
because you were able to watch the audience's reactions too.
Exactly.
The second time.
So that's my number one. That plus Scream are my two big, like, it's different the next time you watch it.
There's a lot of these movies that have like twist endings or reveals or things like that. Mine that came to mind, well, obviously Get Out, obviously The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Memento is another big one. The
that's a good
Prestige, the
one.
two Nolan movies.
Yep.
There's a lot that you can go back and watch. There's
sure,
movies,
Knives Out, I'm sure, is like that.
Yeah. You can track it better. Like you can see what, like, certain characters laugh at certain things and you're like, oh, okay, I see what's coming, you know, like, so there's a lot of those movies. But I would say that my favorites are probably The Prestige and Get Out. Now, as for a movie that I think just gets better upon repeat viewings, but this isn't really the scope of your question. The one that came to mind first was The Big Lebowski. It's not like a twist type of movie, but like that's one of those movies that you pick up on a lot more the more you rewatch it.
Well, there's some movies that it's just things are more funny.
Yeah.
I guess the more you watch it, like I think that Bridesmaids gets better every single time I watch it. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's funny. Like I like it, whatever. Every single time I watch it, I think that a different scene is the funniest scene.
That's how I am with The Big Lebowski.
Love that. That's a good answer, actually. How about this? Now, we talked about how the ending is something that we did not expect, right? That no one would have guessed. Do you have any movies or shows or anything with an ending that was completely a huge surprise?
Well, I think a lot of the movies that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Sixth Sense, Memento, like those are those types of movies. In terms of a show, I'm not going to give you a series finale that I found super. I mean, obviously, The Sopranos was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, sure.
But the end of season 4 of Dexter was one that I was like, what just happened? And if you don't want Dexter spoilers, just skip ahead like 15 seconds. It's when John Lithgow, Trinity Killer, kills
of Shrek fame.
Kills Dexter's wife and leaves his son in a pool of her blood at the end of the season after he's already been killed.
And it's sort of like a throwback to Dexter as a child.
Yes, it's the exact reframing of him, what happened to him when he was a child.
And he, I think, wanted to make sure that his child had a different life than he did. But oops, now they're in the same situation that he was in.
Again, after he had already killed Lithgow, so there was no way to like get any type of revenge.
Yeah,
that was like wild.
Honestly, like Dexter, though, like you're a murderer.
Yeah, right. That was also like the last really good moment of the show.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that the reboot is good.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
I think that I agree with you. I think that Broadchurch is another one.
Yes.
Season 1 of Broadchurch, which if you haven't watched that, it is a British procedural that takes place in like a seaside England town, and a young 10-year-old boy is murdered, and he's found there's just like these big cliffs that are beautiful and also dangerous. You know how it goes. And he's found on the beach below these cliffs, and his family is one that is a very not like prominent family in town, but like, it's a small community, a well-known family in town. And the two cops that are investigating are Olivia Colman, whose family has lived in this town, and she also Queen. This is like, besides the Cornetto trilogy stuff, this is the first thing I had seen her in, and she's amazing.
Was she in all of the Cornetto trilogy? I just remember her from Hot Fuzz.
Maybe no, you know what? I think she's just in Hot Fuzz.
Maybe.
Which is an amazing movie. And so she is kind of in the middle of it because she knows all the suspects, right? And then the other cop, her partner, is David Tennant of Doctor Who fame.
And Jessica Jones fame.
And Jessica Jones. Oh, he was so good in Jessica Jones. And he is sort of the outsider. He's the bigwig that has a troubled past and finds himself on the outs, headed into this small town. And you have to put on subtitles because he's Scottish in it. And like, I don't know if he's Scottish in real life, but I don't understand a dang word he says.
Do you know what the structure reminds me of?
What?
Mayor
of Easttown. Hey, Mayor. Which...
It's the same thing. It's
Mayor of Easttown, same thing.
Yeah.
Except Mayor of Easttown, you go to the Wawa, you get yourself a soft pretzel, and
yeah, exactly. Just like that.
And then you say, go birds.
Yeah.
So... And
nothing like just having like repeated like year and a half late references to Mayor of Easttown.
I know. We just watched it. That's why. But Broadchurch has the craziest ending. I was shocked to my core when it came to that ending. Sharp Objects also is a TV show with a great ending.
I've got a couple other ones for you.
Gone Girl's good.
That are movies because I'm looking at a list right now.
Okay.
Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
That was a really great ending. That was also like kind of comedic.
That was a funny movie.
It was legitimately funny at times. Saw, the first Saw.
Ah!
That one went...
Scary!
Nutso.
Sicko mode.
Yeah, exactly. What else do we have? Oh, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, yeah.
I am your father and all that, which is not
spoiler
really what he said.
alert.
Yeah.
Luke was kissing his sister.
Yep. More M. Night, Unbreakable.
Okay, I didn't
you don't know
watch
the ending.
that. I don't know the ending. What about Signs?
Great
Or it's
ending.
like, oh, aliens.
They don't like water.
They don't like water. It's like, okay. And sorry, don't be mad at us if we spoil the ending of Signs for you, okay? Joaquin Phoenix, Dennis Quaid, look it up.
7.
Oh my God, that's crazy. What's in the box?
And maybe my favorite of these, one of the first movies I watched that,
I'm going to guess Usual Suspects.
yes, the ending truly blew my mind was The Usual Suspects.
That's good. I've never seen it, but
Even
I
if
know
you-
the ending.
Yeah, I was
Why?
gonna say, even if you've never seen the movie, you probably have seen at least a reference to the ending.
Yeah.
Even if you don't realize it.
Yeah.
It's iconic.
Yeah. Those are all really good ones. Classics.
Yeah.
I love it. And you know what? I think that we as a movie society, I think that there hasn't been a ton of movies lately that have done that with the big twist.
Well, because you see the twists coming now.
No, I know.
There's so many twists. Knives Out did it. Parasite went nuts.
The Gift has a good twist.
Parasite went nuts.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of movies that do that. It's just there's so many other movies that they get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I just want more.
And a twist ending's not a thing. It's not shocking anymore.
I know. I want one that just blows my mind open again.
There will be one.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Drew Barrymore being super duper famous.
Yeah.
And we also talked about Janet Leigh in Psycho. So in case you don't know, Psycho is an Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's really good.
I didn't like it, but I watched it a very long time ago.
Hey, well, it's really good.
I would probably like it more now.
And basically, it's Norman Bates. He runs this motel, and he's creepy. And Janet Leigh is a beautiful woman who stays at the motel, and she's this huge name. Apparently she was very famous at that time.
She's on all the posters and on the ads. I don't know if they were radio ads or TV ads at the time. Whatever the marketing was, she was at the forefront of all the marketing.
And all we know is a third into the movie, Janet Leigh is no longer in the movie.
Yeah.
And
it would be if
if you killed off Drew Barrymore in the first 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That brings you to my question. Who would play Drew Barrymore today?
Florence Pugh comes to mind.
That's good. Yeah, imagine they killed her off in the first 10 minutes and don't worry, darling. And we just had that Twitter discourse for no reason.
And it's also
that would be kind of amazing.
And it's also just a 2-hour monologue by Harry Styles.
They've done some stuff like that. We were just watching Deadpool 2.
Yes,
and
I have him in one of my cameos. But you're gonna ask me about cameos.
Brad Pitt, makes a very small appearance.
Yeah, as the Invisible Man or whatever.
Do you know what the one that reminds you of that? The Other Guys.
Yeah.
The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson are in the first 10 minutes. That was the most shocking scene. That was awesome. So, all right, Florence Pugh, I think, is a good person to be in there. I think
specifically right now.
Yeah, right now. Margot Robbie is another good one because she's always, everywhere. Why not Meryl?
Yeah, Meryl. Yeah, Mamma Mia 3 or whatever. She just gets killed in the first scene.
Exactly. She doesn't make it to Mamma Mia 2, Tom.
Oh, okay.
Here we go again.
All right.
But Cher's in it. Cher plays Meryl Streep's mom.
Okay.
I don't think I saw it, though.
This just sounds like a mess.
Yeah. All right. So you also asked me, or you
Wait,
sent
another
me...
crazy ending, Uncut Gems.
Oh, well, yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
You have a question about the casting too, right? Who I would cast as certain parts?
Yes, all the other parts. If you give me 4 people that you would cast for the main crew and the principal, was there somebody else?
Principal?
I was gonna say Drew Barrymore. Yeah.
Oh, I do think that Dewey, I think that maybe a Joe Keery would be good.
Yeah.
I think you need somebody that's funny and boyish and I think that he would be good. I mean, I just think that I want to see more Regina Hall in stuff.
Yeah.
So just I mean, pop her in the Gale role.
Okay.
Right?
I was gonna say maybe the principal.
Or the principal, she'd be good. I think she'd be a good Gale, though.
Yeah.
I think she'd be kind of more fun as Gail than maybe Courtney Cox was.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think as far as the principal goes, why not have like someone that was in horror?
Yeah.
You know, like Patrick Wilson comes to mind. Yeah. He was in a bunch of those horror-y movies, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, like the ones with the doll.
Oh, like the Annabelle ones?
Annabelle with Vera Farmiga.
Yeah.
Shout out Patrick Wilson. We had friends that saw him in a Morristown Starbucks. I know him from the movie Little Children, which disturbed me for the rest of my life.
I know him from Aquaman.
Oh, I never saw Aquaman.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
And then
why can't we make Jason Momoa the principal?
I mean, I guess. I think that if you're going with Sidney Prescott, I mean, it's hard because they are making, there's a new Scream. I know. I'm saying who you want. Who would I want?
Yeah. Who is it now?
Oh, she's still Sidney Prescott.
No, I know, but like, who's the main people?
The big Scream queen nowadays, I don't know if you know, Jenna Ortega is her name. I know who she is. So she's one of the people, and at least in the 5th installment, and she's going to be Wednesday Addams in the Wednesday show that's coming out.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like this generation's Scream queen.
Mm-hmm.
She's seen as like the girl. So why not keep her in there?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Why don't you throw in young Sheldon?
You have to. Young Sheldon has to be involved here somehow.
We need more young Sheldon in horror movies, people. Now that I think about it, I think that we should do a young Sheldon versus young Dylan.
Oh, young Dylan, my guy.
Young Dylan of Nickelodeon fame.
Young Dylan would wipe young Sheldon.
I think that we're a little too mean about Ian Armitage on this podcast.
I have no problem with Ian Armitage. It's young Sheldon that I have the issue with.
Poor young Sheldon. What did he do besides math?
Oh, too much math. Nerd.
Too much math? Young Dylan, though, he would be amazing. So... Bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, I said something here about how it's amazing how many things are kind of obsolete now.
Oh,
the cell phone in Billy's pocket.
This movie would be totally different. Billy wouldn't even be on the radar.
No. There's a whole scene in a Blockbuster, and the Blockbuster is just filled with people.
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, well, that's dated.
Well, filled with people buying horror or renting horror movies.
Yeah. And so there's quite a few things that are happening, like kids that are not on their phone Snapchatting each other and Instagramming each other and stuff like that.
I wonder I haven't seen the new Screams. I wonder if they take that stuff into consideration.
I'm sure they do, right? And I just want to know who your favorite character is.
It's a great question. A lot of them have, I mean, is yours Tatum?
No, mine's Dewey.
Dewey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of them. I think that Stu might be my favorite.
Stu is Matthew Lillard, a.k.a. Shaggy.
Yeah.
A.k.a. a guy from Without a Paddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is so over the top.
He's so funny.
He is, like, so not funny that he's funny.
He's like, what? We're Scoob?
Exactly. My favorite line that he has is at the end when him and Billy are, like, stabbing each other so that they have alibis or whatever for when they frame Sydney's dad. And Billy stabs Stu a little bit too deep, and he's like leaning against the table, like dying.
He's like, man, I'm dying here.
And he just goes, when Sydney calls and says that she called the cops, Stu just goes, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me.
That is the most like typical Scream line.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes.
Oh, that also reminds me. I also love Jamie Kennedy's character. And there's a scene that is so meta. It's crazy.
So funny.
He's watching Halloween on the TV and he's seeing Jamie Lee Curtis's character kind of like waiting, and he's like, Jamie, no, Jamie, turn around.
He's right behind you, Jamie.
He's right behind you, Jamie. And at that time, the ghost face, one of the two guys, is behind him. And it's so funny because if you don't know, and I don't know, was Jamie Kennedy famous at that time?
I feel like he's the most 1996 person alive, so maybe.
But it's so genius that he's like telling himself to turn around. It's so funny.
Whoever, like, obviously it was Kevin Williamson, but whoever, Jamie Kennedy wasn't cast at the time that he wrote the movie. So whoever thought of that line that connected Jamie Lee Curtis and Jamie Kennedy by first name in their head is I like that person.
Did you see the piece of trivia that Matthew Lillard was not originally going to audition?
Yeah.
That was so funny. And it's just, he happened to
His
be there.
girlfriend like dragged him along or something to one of her auditions.
Yeah, he happened to be there.
Yeah.
He
also was supposed to be Billy at first.
Yeah. Did you see some of the casting, like other people?
A lot of them. I didn't even know some of the people, but I'm sure they were famous or on the rise 90s. At the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like they tried to go in one direction and then went in a different one. Like, I know.
With Dewey.
Yeah. With Dewey, they wanted him to be like a typical kind of macho guy.
Yeah.
And then David Arquette is, I think he's great.
He's not that.
That's not his lane.
Yeah.
And Dewey is my favorite character. He's really funny. He's sweet. And he's a great red herring because he's so nice that you're like, he's definitely the murderer. And he's not.
There's also a point when Billy's in jail and the killer calls Sidney. Sidney hangs up the phone and Dewey walks in the room and picks up the phone and is like, hey, hello. Like after the fact, after it's all over. So it's like almost like they wanted you to... Mm-hmm. And then he invites Gail to the woods with him to like try and find Sidney's dad's car, and you're like, oh, he's gonna murder her. And she's like, oh, I shouldn't go alone in the woods with you. Like it's like a whole. They're like clearly pointing
leading you in that direction.
In his direction.
I know that they were supposed to kill him off in the first movie.
He's dead.
Yeah, but test audiences liked him too much.
So they wrote him getting in the ambulance at the end.
So, which I think is the right choice.
Yeah,
he's so funny in it.
Do you want me to talk about the casting a little bit?
Yeah, do that. Because I only have one other question,
So, for Billy, David Arquette and Matthew Lillard were initially considered.
That is, like, so not what I would have thought. I thought that Skeet Ulrich was great in it.
He was. You know who turned it down?
Who?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Who also would have been awesome in it.
You know who screen tested for it?
Who?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, this is the right vibe. Yes.
Freddie Prinze Jr. auditioned for the role of Stu.
Wow, that would have been... Oh my God, it's two Scooby-Doos.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seth Green auditioned for Randy. He was again, right?
His without a paddle person.
Yep. After Janine Garofalo turned down the Gale role, Brooke Shields was nearly cast.
That's interesting because Janine Garofalo, it's like stand-up comedy.
I think that Courtney Cox is right in between Brooke Shields and Janine Garofalo.
I was going to say Courtney Cox is sitcom comedy and Brooke Shields is like premiere actress.
Yeah. Especially at the time. For Sydney, Molly Ringwald was offered and turned it down.
Oh, she would have been too old.
Kevin, well, that's what she said. She said she'd rather not play a high school student at the age of 27.
Yeah.
I mean, tell that to Rachel McAdams.
Oh, well.
Here are the other people who auditioned. Melissa Joan Hart.
Okay, that would have been really cool.
This is all for Sydney.
Clarissa Explains It All.
Yes. Brittany Murphy.
Great.
Alicia Witt. Mm-hmm. She's the one from Veep, right?
She's the one. Her? No, her parents just died.
Oh.
And they were like, it was sad.
Yeah,
but I don't really know what she's in.
Melanie Linsky.
Yeah, we know her, obviously.
Yep, and Melinda Clark.
I recognize that name.
I don't know who that is, but the studio offered the role to Claire Danes, and she said no. And
that's right after My So-Called Life ended.
And to Reese Witherspoon, she also said no.
Really?
Well, and to Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but she was like, I want to do this, but I don't have that much time.
I think it was time, yeah.
Yeah. So then they gave her
and she was like, listen, I'll do the opening.
I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. And isn't that why Wes Craven directed?
Because he wanted to work with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I've got for casting.
Would you consider the Drew Barrymore role to be a cameo?
I was going to ask that when you asked me about cameos.
Yeah, because that's my last question.
I'm going to say yes for purposes of this.
Okay. So some of the other cameos in this, Wes Craven plays the janitor.
That's a cameo.
And that's a cameo. He literally is like one line.
And he's dressed as
like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And then Linda Blair has a true cameo too, where she's from The Exorcist. She played Regan. And she plays a reporter.
Shows up for a very split second wearing crucifix earrings.
Yes. Genius. So are there any movies that stick out to you with a cameo? My favorite cameo is Bill Murray in Zombieland.
I wrote down like 8 of them.
Okay, good. So my favorite is Bill Murray in Zombieland.
That's the first one I have on my list.
It's the funniest thing. I was so shocked when I saw him. I love it.
Hugh Jackman in X-Men First Class.
Okay.
When they show up to get him.
Yeah, he's at the bar.
And he's like, F off.
Yeah, I love
And that's
that.
it. And he's done. Yep. He's not in the rest of the movie.
That's great.
Now, this is one that goes with the Drew Barrymore stuff.
Okay.
this is even less of a cameo, but I saw it on the list. Neil Patrick Harris and Harold and Kumar.
Yeah,
And that's not a cameo, but it's like he's only in like a small part of the movie.
He plays sort of like a super caricature version of his How I Met Your Mother character before How I Met Your Mother.
He's like a macho straight version of himself.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Will Ferrell in Wedding Crashers.
Okay.
When he takes him to the funerals.
Yeah.
David Bowie in Zoolander.
That's great.
When he's the host of the walk-off between Hansel and Zoolander.
It's good.
Billy Idol in The Wedding Singer.
Oh,
on
that's
the
the
plane.
best. Just completely no reason at all.
Not
I feel
at
like
all.
Adam Sandler movies have a ton of cameos like that where it's
Yeah.
just like, why is that person in this
Yes.
movie?
And Michael Cera in This Is the End.
Yes.
Where
oh my
he's
God.
like doing
Sipping
cocaine
on
and
the
yes.
Capri Sun.
Yep.
That's
And he
awesome.
like slaps Rihanna's butt and then she just turns around and like beats him up.
I love it. Yes, that's excellent,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah. Those are my
Can
favorites.
I throw in one?
Yeah.
All right. So last night we watched Celebrity Family Feud
Oh no.
with it's the guys from Jackass were in it. And
They
it
had
was
two full teams of people from Jackass.
It was the best episode of Family Feud I've ever seen.
Yes.
There were almost everyone got like tased.
Yeah. Johnny Knoxville was tasing people who got wrong answers.
Johnny Knoxville also came out wearing the same exact suit as Steve Harvey. So you know what I'm gonna go with for best cameo?
Butterbean?
Butterbean in Jackass.
All right.
And Butterbean, who's like this like MMA guy that now unfortunately
Boxer. He was mostly a boxer.
he like can't even
He cannot
walk.
move. He cannot
it's
move.
very sad. But in the original Jackass movie, he completely knocks out Johnny Knoxville in a department store
Yes.
when they're like boxing.
Yeah.
And Johnny Knoxville has to go to the hospital, and when he wakes up, he asks if Butterbean's okay. As if he got like a single punch thrown at him.
He got knocked out in like 4 seconds.
4 seconds. So I'm gonna go with Butterbean.
All right, Butterbean it is.
Best cameo in a movie.
The Butterbean Award for Best Cameo
of
goes
all
to
time.
Butterbean.
It's got to be Butterbean. I wonder where he got that name.
I don't know.
What is a Butterbean?
I think it's just what he looked like because
No,
he was
but
like.
what's a Butterbean?
I don't know.
Have you ever had one?
A Butterbean? No.
I
I
don't
have
even
not
know.
had a Butterbean. No.
Sounds kind of good. Do you know what does not sound good? Wax beans.
What are you talking about?
Wax beans are like those yellow green beans.
Okay.
They're disgusting.
I don't know what those are.
Wax beans.
All right.
Lima beans. They're good.
Pinto beans are good. Black
Yeah.
beans are good.
Don't know about butter beans.
Garbanzo beans are good.
The only butter bean I know, not Johnny Knoxville. And the greatest cameo of all time.
Yep.
That's all you need.
So from one award to another, the Mrs. Nesbitt Identity Crisis Award for this one.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's probably Sydney, right?
I guess.
I mean,
who has one?
she doesn't really have she's just dealing with the death of her mom.
Yeah.
We have an identity crisis because we don't know who the killer is.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, really? I don't think anybody does.
There's no character development in this movie at all.
No, there's none. It's kind of great about
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
So,
there
yeah.
are slight changes in that Gail and Sydney don't hate each other by the end.
Yeah, I guess.
But, like, that's really it.
That's really it. It's not like you see any remorse from the killers.
No.
You don't
No,
really.
you specifically do not see any remorse from the
and
killers.
you don't really get much of a motive, which is kind of like fun.
For some of them, you do.
Well, Billy's is motherhood abandonment.
Yeah.
And Stu's was peer pressure.
Stu's was peer pressure, but it was also because Drew Barrymore dumped him. They mentioned that, like, in an offhanded line.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's necessarily motivation because he's killed like 1 billion people.
She was the second one that he killed.
Yeah.
So that's not 1 billion people. That was
I
2.
bet he killed somebody
I
first
guess-
without having any motivation.
Well, he was helping his friend out.
Yeah, peer pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that's that. So that's the Identity Crisis Award. Nobody.
I wonder if you watch Scream one, like, would you be able to pick out which character
Yes.
murdered which people?
People figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them you could probably guess. Like, my guess would be that Billy killed Tatum
He
because
did.
Tatum was Stu's girlfriend.
Well, there were Billy and Stu are both not accounted for at that time. Because
Okay,
Stu's
so-
going to get Randy a beer.
So you don't
and Billy's
know.
not at the party.
Right.
So, yeah. But people decided that it was Billy because, like, you see Stu, like, right after that.
Okay. That's really fun that people like Reddit do that.
Everyone is broken down.
Now that one is like actually a Reddit thing that's kind of fun. Like some of the things that they do on Reddit, like of being like, I watched every second of the Star Wars movie to find out the exact number of seconds that Darth Vader's on screen. And it's like, what are you doing?
Well, I put that Stu would be a Redditor now.
Oh, God.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't think Billy, I think Billy's probably too cool for Reddit, but Stu would definitely be a Redditor. And so would Randy.
No shame to Redditors. Sometimes I Reddit stuff to be
I'm on Reddit all the time. There's a specific type of person that you would call a Redditor, though.
Got it.
and it's one side of the coin is Randy and the other side of the coin is Stu.
Randy looks up like cute horror movie stuff and like fun things and has a Tumblr.
Stu
if
just
it's 2012.
Stu's like really misogynistic.
Yeah, Stu is on
the parts
Donald.
of Reddit that you don't want to be on. So food, we're gonna do something slightly different with food here, because so like instead of just like listing the food in the movie,
also not a bad thing, but yeah,
we're gonna do something that's a little bit more focused. We're gonna do either however you want to interpret it, most memorable, best use of food, but we're gonna focus on one specific thing.
I have two actually.
Okay, we're gonna focus on two specific things.
Jiffy Pop.
In the beginning, with
Casey, where it ends up catching on fire, and you can smell the popcorn almost, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a movie night. It's like it's exactly what you've done a million times and whatever. So it sets the scene really well. And then the beer that Tatum throws at Ghostface to try to prevent her.
She throws like 4 beers at him.
Yeah, and she does it with very good strength, I thought, and accuracy.
Yeah.
So I think those two are my favorite. I also really like that when they go to the store and Tatum is just like filling the cart with snacks. Yeah. I love that.
I also love when Dewey is supposed to be tailing Sydney and like protecting her and everything, and the sheriff comes up to him and he's like, Dewey, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm tailing Sydney. And he's like, no, you're not. And you see Dewey holding ice cream and he's eating ice cream.
It's genius.
Question for you. Billy says that life is a movie, but you don't get to pick your genre. Sure you can. If your life could be a movie, what genre would you pick?
I would probably pick Sea Life documentary.
Okay.
Because a lot of it's just unexplored,
Okay.
Like, I don't think it would be My Friend the Octopus, because that's creepy.
My Octopus Teacher.
Oh, that's But, like, maybe a fun one that's, like, half sea documentary, but it also, like, you have a animated pet, like, shark.
So this is Finding Nemo. You want to be in Finding Nemo.
But his teeth are kind of filed down, so he's friendly.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So this is Finding Nemo. Or Shark Tale.
No, but it's documentary, Tom, and there's like real footage.
Okay.
But then there's your shark friend who's animated and has his teeth filed down.
Okay.
And he just tells you, like, look, there's a lot of things that we know about, but there's also so much more.
And he shows you like an electric eel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And krill.
Yep.
Whatever krill is.
Yep. Like the billions of things that blue whales eat.
So I think that's what I would choose for my documentary, for my movie life.
Okay.
What about you?
Sports.
Why?
Because then I could be like a professional athlete. Because it's a movie, like The Rookie,
When in reality, you told me today that you were mad that you couldn't do the arm hang for the presidential fitness test.
I was so angry. I was angry specifically at one of my classmates.
Yeah, because she was really good at it.
She was so good at it.
And you couldn't do it very well?
But she was so nice, too, so I couldn't really be mad at her.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah.
All right, so we have wildlife sea documentary, but also half animated.
Yeah.
Like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit meets Planet Earth.
Like the original concept of Shrek meets Blue Planet.
That's perfect.
Yes.
And yours is sports.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, absolutely. So also, what is your favorite Scream Halloween mask? So we have the regular one. I already know which one you're going to pick.
We've already discussed it. You're not going to know which one I pick.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
It's the one with the blood.
That was what I was going to say until you said I know which one you're going to pick, so I chose a different one.
It's the one where you squirt the blood into the mask.
Yeah. So, okay, we talked about this in another episode.
No, I think we talked about it in real life.
In real life?
Yeah.
Well, in case whatever, Scream, the Ghostface mask, you have your traditional Ghostface, okay? And all of these come with the same body outfit. It's like a really gross, clingy, black robe that's like a dress, and it's an awful fabric, and then it's like almost like it's kind of torn up on the bottom and edges, on the sleeves, on the edges. You have your traditional Ghostface mask. That, of course, is just Ghostface. Then you have the scary movie Ghostface, who maybe has partook in a certain now
newly legalized
substance
in our state.
He's like smiling. You also have Bloody Scream. And Bloody Scream, that one probably cost $39.99 as opposed to $29.99 because inside of the costume, there's a little pump. And if you pump it, blood comes down. That one, honestly, is my favorite.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
The coolest one ever. Like,
when I was like 9 years old, I was like, oh my God.
Only the cool kids can wear that.
I was not cool enough to wear that.
I never wore a Scream mask. My cousin Kate did.
I was Gumby.
I think she was Bloody Ghostface one year.
When everybody was Ghostface, I was Gumby. So that tells you where I was at.
I was a Got Milk ad one year. And then my other one that I really like that I've seen is Glow in the Dark Scream.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
And so that one is your Ghostface mask, but it turns like that neon green when the lights are off.
Yeah.
I think that one might take over because imagine like 10 of them in a room just like dancing to like one more time.
Yes.
And it's just like all these
or like Clarity.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, yeah. Imagine them in a frat basement. I missed my chance. I could have been glow in the dark Ghostface at a frat basement party playing Clarity and Kesha.
It's true.
In 2011 or 12. And on sticky floors.
Like a G6.
Oh my God. Yeah, Far East movement, baby.
The whole vibe.
I could have done that with the glow-in-the-dark Ghostface mask. I'm going to encourage my child. I wonder if they make them in baby sizes.
Baby's first Ghostface mask?
Baby's first Ghostface, glow-in-the-dark Ghostface.
Hey, listen. Babysitters Club. Send it to our house. You know where we live.
That would be so fun. Yeah, so I'm going to say glow-in-the-dark for the potential.
Upset. It's an upset here.
Of bloody Scream, yeah. And I always called it Scream. I never called it Ghostface.
Most people did.
I called it Scream. Like, oh, it's
Ghostface isn't even the name of the killer, I don't think.
Bloody Scream, glow-in-the-dark Scream.
I don't know if that's specifically in any of the movies that he's Ghostface. He's just called the killer, mostly.
Where did they get Ghostface from?
The face. I think it's like a specific costume.
They found the costume, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like how the Michael Myers is a William Shatner mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a cool one for you. That's a little bit of a question, but it's more about the fact.
Oh.
Apparently, until 2019, the people who owned Stu's house, where like the whole climax of the movie takes place, would rent it out on Airbnb.
That's amazing. I would never, ever, ever, ever do that.
That was my question.
No, never, ever.
How much do you think it costs
per night?
Per night.
Do you know? $500 a night.
$1,500 a night for 16 people.
Okay, that's kind of worth it.
Yeah. It's absolutely worth it. It's in like Northern California. It's near San Francisco, I think.
That sounds really nice.
They would also have a party every Halloween for $200 a person.
That's so no, I would not do that.
I would love to do that.
What is a house or a Airbnb, a magical place that you would stay at if it was rented out? I
should have thought of that.
I know. I thought of it off the cuff here, baby.
Can I do like Willy Wonka's Factory?
Yeah, sure. That works. Willy Wonka's Factory.
And it was awful looking.
Yeah.
No, the house in Knives Out.
Ooh, why would you do something spooky?
Because that would be cool.
I would do like the Christmas Story house on Christmas. You would do like
Paddington's
Home Alone.
house.
Yeah. Yes. The Browns house, townhouse in Portobello Road. Or whatever it is in Paddington.
Yep. Okay.
That's exactly what I would do.
I've got my house, my rules, my coffee or whatever. And you've got Paddington.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He'd be like, oh, I'm making a marmalade sandwich. Or no, I'd be in the jail. Because that jail ended up being really nice.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I would not want to go to jail. Let me think what else.
With Knuckles?
Oh my God. Brendan Gleeson. Also, I would probably do like a Harry Potter thing. I'd go to Hogwarts.
Hogwarts is scary.
Hogwarts is scary, but you know what?
They have like flesh-eating snakes that crawl through the pipes.
I would probably just stay in like my quarters
dorm
or whatever. Yeah, and like I always wondered what a 4-poster bed was, but I know what it is now. Yeah. But when I was like young, I always thought that it was like you actually had to put posters on either. Like, I was like, how do you get in?
Yeah.
If it had 4 posters.
It's like a fort, blanket fort.
So
So the people actually moved back in to the house.
Which, you know what? That's okay.
Yeah, so they just live there now. It's also on a property that operates as a wedding venue for most of the year. So like you could get married. It's like there's a separate part of the property that's the wedding venue, but like you can get married on the same property as
Now that I would do.
Yeah.
I would totally do that. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome. Man, can we get remarried?
Yeah, we'll go out to California and we'll figure it out.
That sounds great. But wait, everybody has to be, all the guests have to dress as Ghostface.
With the glow-in-the-dark mask. So I just have some comments and some trivia. I guess while we're talking about the houses, I just want to say I love the Prescott's house.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like a Victorian kind of deal. It's like there's like cool wallpaper. There's a huge amount of windows, a giant staircase.
Yeah.
It's just an awesome looking house. But I guess the ability for the killer to see her through like 50 different windows sort of puts a damper on it.
Right.
But out front it has like a little walkway and a white picket fence and all that.
It's a nice town. They're very privileged.
They are the commentary on this movie calls them middle class.
No.
These people are not middle class.
Absolutely not. In Northern California, absolutely
No.
not. Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
And I think that speaks to something else I wanted to talk about, which is how these privileged people are so desensitized to the things that are happening around them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know that it's probably satirical.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah. But the kids are like, yeah, another murder.
Yeah, well...
nobody cares.
Well, when Tatum makes the joke about, like, she's like, oh, teen suicide is out this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean... There's a lot here. I mean, it's the whole motive for the killings. Like, Stu just kills people basically because he's bored and he likes movies, and it's like something that they do in the movies.
Yep.
Billy says life is a movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, the movie has a lot to say about like attitudes towards violence in movies and the matter-of-factness with how the media reports it.
Yeah. And the sensationalism too that goes along with it.
Yeah.
We are like, they are like fiending for more.
Yeah, I mean the horror movies are selling off the rack, or renting off the rack at Blockbuster or whatever the rental store is. Stu and Billy are like the prime example of the type of privilege that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Like I know that Billy had something traumatic happen to him when his mom left.
Okay, but how many people have something like that happen?
Exactly.
Okay.
Sydney's not out there killing people, and her mom got murdered.
Right.
So I mean, these people are so afflicted with like. What's the word? Like a suburban malaise that like Tatum walks right up to the killer and is like making fun of him.
I know, which is so genius.
She thought the whole thing was a joke.
Right.
And I mean, Stu's line, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me, just shows that like these people don't understand the consequences of things.
Right.
Like it's not about your mom. I mean, this is obviously me these are obvious points, but like it's funny to me the way that this was all presented.
Yes.
It's also sort of plays in with something like the Satanic Panic, which I have a little bit on here too. So there's a few points earlier in the movie when people mention kids taking part in the occult, which was a big thing in like the 70s and 80s.
Well, and it's interesting too because Nev Campbell starred in The Craft, which is exactly about that a year earlier.
With Skeet Ulrich.
Oh, I didn't know he was in it.
That she said that's why she was comfortable with Scream. She said she didn't want to do another horror movie so soon, but he was going to be involved too, so she wanted to do that. So I mean, like the Satanic Panic was something that was big in the 70s, 80s, bled into the 90s a little bit with like the West Memphis 3.
Yep. Yep.
So basically, people got really worked up about apparent like murders and child abuse and stuff taking place in the name of Satan. Mm-hmm. I listened to an episode of the podcast You're Wrong About. Have you ever listened to that?
I have not.
And they just pick a topic every week and they talk about some misconceptions about it and
cool.
things like that. Yeah, so I listened to the one on the Satanic Panic and it was really interesting. It was basically about misinformation and how capitalizing on suburban fears created like a mass panic around Satanists, running daycares and things like that when there was no tangible proof of it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Salem witch trials.
Exactly. So that's the context we have here. And it's also deeply ingrained in horror. Satanism, like The Omen and Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, like all of this stuff has been a running thread through horror movies for decades. So it's interesting to see how that interplays with the desensitization aspect of it, where it's like, no, these very human people are just bored or like sociopathic, psychotic. They call themselves psychos.
Yeah.
Billy and Stu call themselves psychos.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see how they took like a horror thing that's been such a horror element for years and brought it into this and combined it with the effects of everything from the 70s, 80s, and 90s in real life.
Well, and what's kind of interesting, too, is that the result after that movie came out is Satanic Panic, where a lot of crimes they blamed on Scream.
Well, West Memphis 3 is a perfect, it's not based on Scream, but like Satanic Panic related, where these 3 kids who were sort of like goths.
Yep. Damien Eccles. Eccles is one of them.
I'm not sure.
Oh my God, let me look that up. Damien something is one of them.
Damien, well, there you go.
Right.
You can talk quickly about West Memphis 3 so I can look that up.
Basically, there was murdered, children were killed, and there were 3 guys that were teens that were seen as like the goths and the weirdos and whatever.
Damien Eccles, Jesse Miskelly Jr., and Jason Baldwin.
And so they were found guilty of these murders. I think it was of 2 or 3 little boys.
Doesn't say.
And so they went to jail for a while, like a long time.
Yeah.
And it turns out they were most likely innocent. They
by
got
DNA.
Yeah, by DNA.
Yeah.
So they are innocent. They got out of jail.
That was one of the ones that was blamed on like Metallica and heavy metal music.
And they went to jail, and a lot of the reason why they were convicted was, they didn't have DNA back then.
Or attitudes and prejudices towards people who dress like that and listen to that type of music. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is a pretty recent thing, because one of the podcasts I true crime podcasts I listen to, one of the hosts, she's friends with Damien Eccles, and like,
oh wow,
he's like
normal,
like a normal dude. Yeah, it's
normal.
It's crazy.
That's cool considering what he went through. You know?
Yeah, he was interviewed for the West Memphis 3 episode they did.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
We need to have somebody. We need to make friends with somebody that we can have on for an episode about something they did.
Okay.
not like a wrongful conviction, but
okay. But I have a question. What would, if you were to do a You're Wrong About episode, what would you do it on? That would be misconceptions in cake making or something like that.
Okay.
Right? Something like stupid that has no consequences.
I could probably do something on like pro wrestling.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Something with basically how, you may say pro wrestling's fake, but here's like all the legit parts of it and all that kind of stuff. And,
that's a great idea.
Or metal music, same thing.
I cannot wait for the WWE Tell-All documentary.
With Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it's going to be like a Ken Burns one.
We have to get Vince McMahon on the podcast.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Oh, man. Another thing I had was that... I know this is a real song, obviously, but I loved that the Nick Cave song, that's the Peaky Blinders theme, plays twice in this movie.
It's just like Peaky Blinders.
It's the same song.
It was like, dink, dink. And I'm like, oh my God. And they play it like 50 times every Peaky Blinders episode, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
It is a great song.
I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not a huge Nick Cave fan, so I didn't know that it was a song. I thought it was like written for Peaky Blinders.
Right.
Because he has a lot of songs in Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
So I thought it was specifically written for that, but it's not. Because
he's had some bad stuff happen in his life. It's sad.
So, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I was like, what? It like almost took me out of it. Because
it is interesting.
Because I associated with Peaky Blinders.
I read somewhere that they kind of made the score sort of like, or the music sort of like a Western.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know why.
I didn't notice that as I was watching, but if I went back, I would be interested to see that. And I will definitely watch this movie again.
Oh, heck yeah.
They took a really long time to realize that Tatum was killed.
Well, you know what? I kind of like the way they did that, because the last thing that you want is Dewey seeing his sister being killed, or like having been killed in the middle of everything that's happening. Yeah. I don't like when they do that, when they're like, like in the middle of it. Like, no, let's just like let the stuff play out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of like the way they did that.
I'm just saying there were explosions, throwing beer bottles. I mean,
like people should have known.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Oh, you know what I loved? We talked about this when it happened. I love in the opening scene when Drew Barrymore asks the killer his favorite horror movie, and they're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, and she goes, well, the first was great, but the rest sucked. And Wes Craven is the Elm Street director, and he's also the director of Scream, so he was like, good. He said he wanted to take that out, because Kevin Williamson had that in the original script.
Yeah.
And then when Wes Craven signed on as the director, Wes Craven was like, I don't want people to think I'm like, gassing myself up or whatever, or making fun of people. And Kevin Williamson was like, it's funny. That's what people would say.
Yes.
Like,
right. It's accurate.
Sorry, my guy. Like, and he was like, okay. And then after they showed it to the test audiences, Wes Craven was like, okay, I get it.
That's so funny. Wait, what is your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie? It might be this one.
It might be Scream.
It might be Scream.
It might have to be Scream.
Or it's probably either Scream or Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, I love those two.
Yeah.
And I love The Exorcist.
And The Omen.
Oh, there's actually a lot of really good ones.
But there's so many I haven't seen.
True.
So, some more trivia. The party scene is 42 minutes long.
Yeah, it is most of the movie.
It was shot over the course of 21 days from the time the sun set to the time it rose. So all night.
Yeah.
Over 21 days.
That's wild.
After it wrapped, the crew had t-shirts made that read, "I survived scene 118."
Amazing.
And the cast and crew jokingly called it the longest night in horror history.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Fonzie jacket. So the high school scenes were to be shot at Santa Rosa High School in California. Did you read anything about this?
No.
Very close to the shooting date, the school board read the script and they were like, no way, because it's so violent.
Yeah.
They had been under the impression the film was a comedy. So they moved production to Healdsburg, California. And so Wes Craven put in the end credits under special thanks, in all caps, "No thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board."
So funny. Oh my God. That's awesome.
If you watch, I watched a little bit of behind the scenes stuff on this, and he's like smiling and laughing the whole time he's talking about this movie.
I feel like the horror movie directors are kind of wild. Like John Carpenter is like a Twitter
Nuts.
mainstay now.
He is nuts.
Like there's things of him where he like curses out people that
At
fans that
conventions.
ask him questions and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Like they love him for it. It's not like
that's part of the thing. But he is not afraid to like crap on other people. Like they're wild.
Wes Craven said he had an interesting take on horror, and it sort of reframes it. So he said that he loves making horror movies because there is so much horror in the world, and he feels that by scaring people in a movie, it helps them exorcise those demons as they're watching a movie.
You know,
I don't know if it's true, but I like the idea of it.
Doesn't matter. My thing is, I love loving things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I love people who love things.
I think that when you are unabashedly and unafraid to like truly, truly love something that people might not, or people might say, well, that's not good or whatever, I think that that's brave, and I think that that's awesome. That's like, I love romantic comedies. I am very unafraid to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed to say that that's like my favorite genre to read. I'm constantly reading crappy like romantic comedy books, and I don't think that they're that crappy overall, right? Like if you get a good romantic comedy, it's just as good as any prestige drama. A good horror movie is just as good as any like biopic that's Oscar bait.
Yeah. Better.
Maybe even better. If you really like animated movies, they're just as good as fancy foreign films, you know? And if you like fancy foreign films,
Nice alliteration.
Thank you. If you like prestige dramas, then that's great. I love when you love things. So the fact that Wes Craven was like really appreciated his craft and didn't kind of poo-poo on the fact that, oh, I'm just well known as a horror director.
Yeah.
Like that's a good thing. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did so much in this movie that was like revolutionary, and all of it had to do with how much he loves horror movies.
Yeah, it's great.
And Kevin Williamson too. How much he loved horror movies.
And you see that when people
I don't know why I said past tense for Kevin Williamson.
When you see people that are really into what they do, like it
you
shines
can get wrapped
through.
up in it. You can get wrapped up in it by proxy.
It's great.
Yeah. Also, Drew Barrymore and Nev Campbell never met Roger Jackson. His name was Roger Jackson, who was the voice of
Roger
the
L.
killer.
Jackson.
Roger L. Jackson.
I wonder what the L stands for.
I don't know. Whenever they're talking on the phone to the killer, they're actually talking to him.
Yeah.
But they had never met him.
Yeah. Smart.
That's one of those things like we talked about with Willy Wonka, where you have the actors themselves that don't know what's about to happen.
Yep.
But this is a really good way to do that.
Yep.
So Craven thought that it would be better to bring out the reactions he needed from everyone when they heard his voice.
Yep.
The use of caller ID increased more than threefold after this movie.
I'm sure.
And that's funny because everything has caller ID now.
Well, and that's something that, back to my blockbuster, this movie it's so dated, 1996, Yeah, not having caller ID.
One of the things that I looked up the first time I watched this movie that I love is that Kevin Williamson, again, the screenwriter, felt it was essential for the audience to learn why the antagonists became killers, but he also felt it was potentially scarier if they had no motivation. So the studio was kind of split among those two. So they wanted the action to either be scarier without a motive or that a motive was needed for resolution. They weren't really sure what to do. So Williamson was like, why don't I just do both? And so Billy has the motive of maternal abandonment, and Stu jokingly suggests peer pressure. And that's like it.
Yep, I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't like is like they want an answer to everything.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think more and more you get in movies. You don't get all the answers.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just don't make sense. Sometimes things just are.
Yeah.
And this is a great example of that.
But I do love that Randy, who is like sort of the avatar for the audience, because he's the one that knows all the horror movies and knows all that stuff. He identifies both of them as the killers in the movie. He says to Stu at the beginning when they're sitting around talking about the murders, he's like, "Oh, you're probably the one that did it."
And then he says Billy at the Blockbuster.
In the video store,
Yep.
yeah. And in both cases, he was right.
Randy's so smart.
Jamie Kennedy, the god.
Love him.
So when they're leaving the police station, Dewey's yelling at Tatum for her lack of respect for him. Dewey's Tatum's older brother. So Tatum's like making jokes about Dewey in front of the other officers. And Dewey talks about the sheriff and he's like, he's my superior. And then Tatum goes back to him, the janitor is your superior. And Wes Craven was the janitor at the high school. So he kind of was his superior.
So smart.
It's a very funny little line there. That might be it. Oh, again, Sydney rocked Gail with that punch. I have that written here too.
Yeah, she really did.
And also another thing about Linda Blair, her quick cameo, her one line, how does it feel to be almost brutally butchered?
It's awesome.
To Sydney.
It's great.
I should have said this a little bit earlier. I like how vulnerable they make the killer.
Yeah.
He's not a...
He gets smacked around.
You hear him, he's like, ugh! Like you hear him grunting when he gets hit. Like he's not...
falls all the time.
He's not Michael Myers.
No.
He's not a supernatural being. He's not a killer who put his soul into a doll. Like these two high schoolers.
Yep.
And they make that very clear. He gets hit with stuff and things hurt him.
Right.
They were actually worried about making him too...
Goofy?
Goofy. But what made up for that apparently was the fact that there were two of them, so they could appear anywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you could turn the corner and he's there, and then you turn the other corner and he's at the other corner. Yeah. But it's two people, so it makes sense.
It makes him seem like he's so fast and everywhere. But he's really not.
When she's getting chased around Stu's house, like that's Stu. He knows his house.
Yeah.
So he's cutting her off like at on the stairs. Like he knows where she's going. He knows where everything is in the house because it's his house.
Of course.
So it was very well done making it realistic while also making him sort of seem supernatural.
Tight screenplay.
Yeah. Like when you see him chasing Sydney through Sydney's house and then Billy comes in through the window.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Seconds later.
Right.
So it was a really interesting and cool way of making you suspect everybody. Mm-hmm. Because you couldn't pin down one person because it wasn't one person.
Yep.
That's pretty much all I've got.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love Scream.
Yeah. Does it make baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
It definitely does.
What do we want him to either take away or leave from this movie?
I think that the message is that you can find fun in even the saddest of circumstances.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
I like that.
And you can also... Like, I would show him this one as an example of, like, hey, not all horror movies are... Like, there's more to horror movies than getting scared.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when I was a kid, I was really scared of horror movies. I'm less so now, but, like, I'm still kind of scared of some of them.
Oh, I won't look at some of... some I turn away all the time.
Yeah. So, like...
And that's okay, too. It's okay to be scared sometimes.
Yeah, of course. If I was told when I was younger that this was a scary movie, but it's also, like, really funny... I probably wouldn't have gotten all the jokes back then, but I think that would have helped me. And then I would have been like, wow, I really like that movie. I want to go check out Halloween, or I want to go check out Nightmare on Elm Street, which I still have not seen, either one of them. But yeah.
That's great.
I think that that's a good thing to take out of this one.
Perfect. Love it.
Yep. So that is Scream. That's our first Halloween month spooky season episode.
Boo.
Trademark. So next week, we're going to have a little bit of a breather from this one. Not quite as intense. It is intense, kind of, but if this movie is 2/3 horror, 1/3 comedy, the next one is 2/3 comedy, 1/3 horror, and it is 2004's Shaun of the Dead.
It is one of my favorite movies.
Amazing.
I love this movie. It's the first in the Cornetto trilogy, which is Edgar Wright.
Yep.
It stars Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Yes.
It's very...
Is Nick Frost his real name?
I don't know.
That's a good name.
It's very British. It's British humor up the wazoo, mixed with zombie movies.
Zombie outbreak hits London. That's it.
It's so funny.
I've never seen any of the zombie movies that it references.
I have seen not those.
Which is like the George A. Romero ones and 28 Days Later
I
and
haven't
those
seen
types
any
of movies.
of those.
Yeah.
But I've seen the Cornetto trilogy. Hot Fuzz, I think I've seen 75 times. I don't really think I've seen Shaun of the Dead that much.
I've seen Shaun of the Dead a few times. I've seen
times.
Hot Fuzz probably 10 times.
Oh my God. It's the best. So I'm excited to see, now that I'm going to rewatch Shaun of the Dead, how it holds up when it comes to the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah. Shaun of the Dead, it's on Peacock. So please go check it out on Peacock. And, you got a week. Yep, that's exactly it. And also, very, very, very important, go check out our Instagram. I have two things for you. First, check out the Instagram at Baby's First Watchlist today. Make sure you're following, because tomorrow we are going to have a poll on which of these three movies you're going to want us to talk about and go through. It will be I think it will be the 25th of this month of October. You get to choose between Hocus Pocus, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Beetlejuice. So please make sure you're following us at Baby's First Watchlist. You will only be able to vote on Instagram. So please go follow and check out. It will be in our story tomorrow, Wednesday at noon. That's when it starts. Go vote. We want to know what you want to hear.
And there's something else too.
The other thing is something that I have totally forgotten. Oh,
I know.
Go ahead.
We have our first very special episode.
Yes.
So very special episode is like those 80s comedies where they would have like a very serious episode. Ours isn't like that.
No.
But ours, it means it's a guest episode.
Yeah.
We have one of our little babies, aunts or uncles, that comes and talks to us. We did our first one. It is not about a specific movie in this instance.
Very different.
Our Uncle Nick came and asked lots of fun questions to us. We played a really cool game.
Yep.
And we're excited. We're going to drop it, I think, on...
Let's say Friday.
Friday?
Yeah. So this coming Friday, we're going to have another episode. It's slightly shorter than our normal episodes. Slightly. Very, very slightly. So yeah, we wanted to get it set up so that we have future guest episodes. And this was our first attempt at it. So...
And I'm happy. I thought it was really fun.
It's great. Just also be nice.
Be nice.
Continue to be nice.
Always.
Give us a 5-star review. Do it.
If you want.
Please.
All right.
Yeah. So again, follow Baby's First Watchlist on Instagram.
Say goo.
Do we get anything at the end of this episode?
Say goo.
Is he here? His
He's here. He pooped. I need to change him.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. So I will. We'll see you later.
Bye.